or one decision away from a different life. There comes a moment in every person's life where everything can change. Not tomorrow, not next year, not when the timing is perfect, but right here, right now, with a single decision. One choice can alter the trajectory of your life. One choice can break the chains of fear, self-doubt, and limitation. One choice can open the door to a future that seemed impossible only yesterday. Think about it. Every great transformation, every breakthrough, every extraordinary story you admire didn't start with someone who had it all figured out. It started with someone who made a decision, sometimes a small one, that created a ripple effect so powerful it rewrote the story of their life. The truth is, most people wait. They wait for the right circumstances, the right economy, the right support, the right timing. And while they wait, their life stays the same. But life doesn't respond to waiting. It responds to action, to bold decisions, to courage in the face of uncertainty. And I'll tell you this, you don't need the whole plan to change your life. You don't need to see every step ahead of you. You just need the courage to take the first one. That's it. The first decision. Because that first step creates momentum. And momentum is what separates the dreamers from the achievers. So ask yourself right now, what decision have you been avoiding? What choice do you know you need to make, but you've been putting off because of fear, because of comfort, because of the opinions of others? I promise you this, the quality of your life comes down to the quality of your decisions. And when you decide with certainty, when you cut off every other option, your brain, your heart, your soul, they align and the universe begins to open doors you never thought existed. So today is not just another day. Today is the day you draw a line in the sand. Today is the day you stop waiting for someday. Today is the day you decide who you will become, and you make that decision with power, with passion, with absolute certainty. Because you're not just one decision away from a different life, you're one decision away from the life you were meant to live. Every single person alive today has to face a truth that many try to ignore. Your life is a direct reflection of the decisions you've made up until this moment. If you look around at your relationships, your health, your finances, your sense of purpose, everything is built on choices, not fate, not luck, not someone else pulling the strings. It's you, and that should excite you. Because if your decisions got you here, then a new decision can take you somewhere completely different. That's power. That's freedom. That's the essence of transformation. Think about it. When you see someone living a life of fulfillment, passion, and success, it wasn't handed to them. It wasn't an accident. At some point, they stood at a crossroads. They felt the same fears, the same doubts, the same uncertainty that you felt. And in that moment, they made a decision that set them on a new path. That decision became the seed of destiny. And destiny isn't some far-off mystical thing. It's simply the cumulative result of the choices you make every single day. Most people underestimate the weight of a decision. They treat choices like they're small, insignificant, casual. But let me tell you, there are no small decisions. Because even the smallest choice compounds. Every yes or no sets off a chain of consequences. You decide to hit snooze instead of getting up early, and that tiny choice affects your energy, your productivity, your confidence throughout the day. You decide to skip that workout, and over time, it becomes a pattern, and that pattern becomes a lifestyle. You decide to stay silent when you know you should speak up, and before you know it, silence becomes your identity. On the other hand, the same principle works for you. One decision in your favor can radically alter your trajectory. You decide to finally get serious about your health, and that one choice creates energy you never knew you had, which fuels every area of your life. You decide to invest in your growth, and suddenly you're seeing possibilities that were invisible before. You decide to leave behind the story that you're not enough, and you step into a version of yourself that is unstoppable. The challenge is this. Decisions are easy to talk about, but they're not always easy to make. Why? Because every meaningful decision carries risk. It means letting go of the familiar, even if the familiar is painful. It means stepping into uncertainty where you can't control every outcome. And that's why so many people get stuck. They'd rather endure the known misery than embrace the unknown possibility. But I'll tell you right now, the unknown is where your future lies. The unknown is where growth, expansion, and fulfillment exist. When you decide, truly decide, you cut off every other option. That's what the word actually means, to cut away. It's not I'll try. It's not maybe. It's not someday. It's a full body commitment where you lock in and say, this is who I am now. This is where I'm going. That kind of decision reshapes your identity. And once your identity shifts, your destiny is inevitable. Because you no longer see yourself as someone who tries to change. You see yourself as someone who already is. I've met countless people who transformed their entire lives because of one defining decision. A woman who walked out of a toxic relationship and decided she was worth more. A man who looked at his children and decided he would never again settle for mediocrity. An entrepreneur who risked security to follow a vision and built something extraordinary. None of them knew how it would all work out when they decided, but their courage to choose opened doors that never would have appeared otherwise. Here's the truth. Indecision is a decision. Every time you delay, every time you hesitate, every time you avoid making a choice, you are still choosing. You're choosing to stay the same. And if you stay the same, nothing changes. Your circumstances don't magically improve. The life you dream of doesn't knock on your door. But when you decide with absolute clarity, everything begins to shift. Opportunities reveal themselves. People show up. Resources align. Your mind kicks into gear and starts finding ways to make that decision a reality. Right now, ask yourself, what decision have you been postponing? What choice have you been avoiding because it feels scary, uncomfortable, or uncertain? That is the very decision that holds the key to your next level. That's the decision that separates you from the life you desire. Don't wait until tomorrow. Don't wait until you feel ready. Readiness is a lie. You'll never feel fully ready. You must choose first, and the certainty comes after. So remember this: decisions shape destiny. Your life doesn't change because you wish for it. It doesn't change because you hope for it. It changes because you decide. And when you decide fully, completely, with every fiber of your being, that you will no longer accept less than what you're capable of, that's when life opens up. That's when you stop being a prisoner of your past and become the author of your future. Because in the end, you're never more than one decision away from a radically different life. Most people spend their entire lives waiting for the right timing, waiting for the right person to show up, waiting for their finances to stabilize, for their health to improve, for their confidence to magically appear. They convince themselves that someday they'll take action, someday they'll step up, someday they'll finally live the life they've dreamed of. But here's the hard truth: someday doesn't exist. It's a fantasy. And every day you wait, you're not just delaying your future, you're actively destroying it. Because life doesn't reward hesitation. Life rewards those who step forward, who decide, who move even when conditions aren't perfect. You see, waiting feels safe. It feels comfortable. It tricks your brain into thinking you're avoiding pain, avoiding risk, avoiding failure. But what you're really doing is trading the pain of discipline for the pain of regret. And regret is a far heavier burden to carry. Discipline stings for a moment. Regret eats away at you for a lifetime. The people who achieve greatness are not the ones who waited for the stars to align. They're the ones who looked around at the chaos, the uncertainty, the imperfections, and said, I'm going anyway. Let's be real. Conditions will never be perfect. The economy will always fluctuate. People will always have opinions. Fear will always whisper in your ear. If you make your decisions based on waiting for all of that to disappear, you'll never move. And years from now, you'll look back and realize you had the power to create something extraordinary, but you gave it away to hesitation. I've met people who've told me stories of opportunities they let slip because they wanted to wait until they were more prepared, more confident, more secure. And do you know what happened? Someone else took action. Someone else stepped into the opportunity. Someone else claimed the reward, because life doesn't wait for you. Opportunities don't pause until you're ready. They pass, and they pass quickly. And when they're gone, they're gone. But let's flip that around. Think of the times you didn't wait. Think of the moments you acted even though you were scared. Maybe you didn't feel ready to start that business, but you did it anyway. Maybe you weren't sure how to approach that person, but you did it anyway. Maybe you didn't feel confident enough to try something new, but you did it anyway. And what happened? Growth, expansion, a sense of pride that came not from the outcome, but from the courage to act. That's what life gives you when you refuse to wait. Waiting is nothing more than a mask for fear. And fear is always going to be there. The difference between those who succeed and those who stay stuck is not the absence of fear, it's the refusal to let fear make the decisions. If you let fear dictate your choices, you'll always choose to stay the same, to hold back, to play small. But if you recognize fear as a signal that you're on the edge of growth, you can use it as fuel. That's the moment you lean in, not pull back. Here's the thing, every minute you wait, you're building habits of hesitation. You're training your brain to associate opportunity with delay. And the more you do that, the harder it becomes to break the cycle. But the opposite is also true. Every time you take action, no matter how small, you're conditioning yourself to be decisive, courageous, unstoppable. You're wiring your mind to respond to life with power instead of paralysis. And let me tell you, there's nothing more liberating than realizing you don't need anyone's permission to act. You don't need the perfect plan. You don't need to know all the steps. You just need to move. The universe responds to movement. Doors open when you walk toward them. Momentum builds when you start rolling forward. People show up, resources appear, clarity arrives, but only once you've made the decision to stop waiting and start acting. So let me challenge you right now. Where in your life are you waiting? Where have you convinced yourself that conditions aren't good enough? That the timing isn't right, that you're not ready? What opportunities are you letting pass you by? Because you're stuck in hesitation. Be honest with yourself, because awareness is the first step to change. And then make the decision today, right now, that you will no longer let waiting rob you of your future. You see, your life can change in an instant, but only if you give it the chance. It won't change by waiting. Waiting is passive. Waiting is surrender. Change happens through action, through boldness, through the willingness to step into uncertainty and trust yourself. That's where breakthroughs are born. Stop telling yourself that tomorrow you'll start. Tomorrow is a lie. The only time you have is now. The only chance you have is this moment. If you want to transform your health, decide now. If you want to improve your relationships, decide now. If you want to create financial freedom, decide now. Because every moment you delay, the gap between where you are and where you want to be gets wider. Don't live a life of what if. Don't get to the end and look back with regret, wishing you had been bolder, faster, more decisive. Choose today to step forward. Choose today to break the cycle of hesitation. Choose today to stop waiting for permission, for perfection, for guarantees. Because waiting holds you back. But action sets you free. Fear is the silent killer of dreams. It's the invisible chain that holds people back from stepping into the life they're capable of living. Every single one of us feels it. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of what other people might think, fear of losing what we already have. But here's the truth. Fear isn't the enemy. Fear is simply a signal. It's a sign that you're standing on the edge of growth, that you're about to step into territory that will stretch you, challenge you, and expand you. The real enemy is letting fear control your decisions. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the decision to move forward in spite of it. The people you admire, the ones who have built extraordinary lives, didn't do it because they were fearless. They did it because they were willing to act even though they were terrified. They understood that fear doesn't disappear. It transforms when you face it head on. The moment you lean into it, fear becomes fuel. It sharpens your focus, awakens your energy, and forces you to rise to the occasion. Think about the moments in your life when you were most proud of yourself. Was it when everything was easy, comfortable, predictable? No. The pride you carry comes from the times you were scared and you did it anyway. Maybe it was speaking up when your voice was shaking. Maybe it was taking that risk when your mind was screaming, play it safe. Maybe it was leaving behind something familiar to chase a bigger vision. That surge of confidence, that breakthrough in your identity, it was born in the fire of fear. Fear shows up the strongest right before a breakthrough. It's almost like life tests you. Do you really want this? Are you willing to pay the price? Will you choose courage or comfort? And most people retreat. They choose comfort. They tell themselves, I'll try later. I'll wait until I feel stronger. I'll wait until I feel ready. But courage doesn't wait for readiness. Courage creates readiness. Every bold action you take strengthens you. And every time you run from fear, you weaken yourself. Let me make something clear. Fear will always be there. Don't waste your energy trying to eliminate it. Instead, change your relationship with it. When fear shows up, instead of shrinking, say to yourself, this means I'm growing. This means I'm about to level up. This means I'm alive. Fear is proof that you're pushing against your limitations. It's proof that you're on the edge of becoming more than you were yesterday. The tragedy is that most people let fear dictate their choices. They stay in jobs they hate because the fear of the unknown feels worse than the misery they already know. They stay silent in relationships because they're afraid of conflict, even though silence is killing the connection. They avoid chasing their dreams because they're terrified of failure, not realizing that the real failure is never trying. Fear convinces them to play small, and in the end, their life becomes a shadow of what it could have been. But the ones who break through, the ones who create extraordinary lives are the ones who say, yes, I feel the fear and I'm doing it anyway. They don't wait for confidence to magically appear. They build confidence through courageous action. Confidence isn't something you get before the leap. It's something you earn after you leap. The leap is what transforms you. When you start living with courage, everything changes. You stop being paralyzed by what if. Instead, you realize that the worst case scenario is rarely as bad as your mind makes it. You realize that failure is not the end. It's feedback, it's learning, it's redirection. And suddenly fear loses its grip. Not because it's gone, but because it no longer controls you. Here's what courage really does. It rewires your identity. Every time you act with courage, even in small ways, you're proving to yourself, I am the kind of person who doesn't let fear run my life. That identity compounds. You start to trust yourself more deeply. You start to see yourself as capable of handling whatever comes. And when you trust yourself, you become unstoppable. So ask yourself right now, where in your life are you letting fear hold the steering wheel? Where are you settling for less because you're afraid of taking the risk, of failing, of being judged? What would change if you decided today to take back control, to face the fear and act anyway? Imagine the energy, the pride, the growth you'd experience by finally breaking those invisible chains. You already know what needs to be done. Deep down, you've always known. The only thing standing in the way is fear, and the antidote is courage. Courage isn't some grand heroic act. It's simply choosing to move forward one step at a time, even when your legs are shaking. It's saying, I refuse to let fear make my decisions anymore. Life will never get easier. Fear will never disappear. But you can get stronger, you can get bolder, you can choose courage again and again until it becomes your natural state. And when that happens, you'll look back and realize that everything you've ever wanted was on the other side of the very fear you were running from. So embrace it, lean into it, because fear is not your enemy. It's your invitation to grow. And when you choose courage over fear, you don't just change your circumstances, you change yourself. And that's the kind of transformation that no one can ever take away from you. You don't need the whole staircase to start climbing. You don't need every answer, every detail, or every guarantee before you take the first step. This is where so many people get stuck. They think they have to see the entire map before they move. They convince themselves they need absolute certainty about how it will all unfold. But that's not how transformation works. Progress doesn't come from knowing every step. It comes from the decision to take the first one. The first step is always the hardest because it feels uncertain. It feels risky. Your brain screams for safety and tries to keep you in the comfort zone. That's human nature. Our minds are wired to protect us, not to help us grow. But here's the paradox. Safety is an illusion. Staying still isn't actually safe. It's slow death. It's watching your dreams fade because you're too afraid to move without a guarantee. Momentum is the secret weapon of achievement. Once you start moving, once you commit to that first step, energy begins to flow. You feel it in your body, in your emotions, in your mind. Suddenly, doors that you couldn't see before begin to open. People show up, opportunities appear, solutions reveal themselves. But none of that happens until you move. The universe responds to action, not intention. It responds to boldness, not hesitation. Think about it like pushing a heavy boulder. At the beginning, it feels impossible to move. It's stuck, it's resistant, it won't budge. But the moment you apply enough force to get it rolling, momentum kicks in. Suddenly, it's not so heavy. Suddenly, it starts to roll on its own. That's exactly how life works. The first step requires the most energy, but once you create momentum, the path becomes lighter, smoother, faster. The mistake so many people make is waiting for clarity before they act. But clarity doesn't come first. Clarity is created by action. You won't know all the answers until you start moving. You won't discover your true path until you walk it. Action creates feedback. Feedback creates learning. And learning creates clarity. If you sit on the sidelines waiting to figure it all out, you'll never move and your life will remain exactly the same. Confidence works the same way. Most people think they need confidence before they act. But confidence doesn't precede action. It follows it. You build confidence by doing, by stepping into the unknown, by proving to yourself through experience that you're capable. The very act of moving forward is what builds the muscle of certainty. It's like training in the gym. The strength doesn't come before the workout. It comes because of the workout. So the question isn't, do I know all the steps? The question is, am I willing to take the first one? Because that one step has the power to change everything. That one step sends a signal to your brain, your body, and the world around you that you are serious. You're not just dreaming, not just hoping, you're doing. And that signal activates momentum. Imagine standing at the base of a mountain. From the bottom, the summit looks impossible. You can't see the trail all the way up. You don't know what obstacles lie ahead. But the only way to discover the path is to take the first step. As you climb, the trail unfolds. You see what was invisible at the bottom, and step by step, what once looked impossible becomes inevitable. That's the power of momentum. Here's the truth. Perfectionism is just fear in disguise. People who wait to have it all figured out are really just afraid to start. They tell themselves, I need to plan more, prepare more, learn more. But preparation without action becomes procrastination. And procrastination kills dreams. The way out is simple. Act. Even if it's messy, even if it's imperfect, even if you stumble. Because an imperfect step forward beats a perfect plan that never leaves your mind. When you look back at your life, the most meaningful shifts will have come from simple first steps. You made a decision, you sent that email, you had that conversation, you started that habit, and those small moves snowballed into transformations you couldn't have imagined. Don't underestimate the power of one small step taken with courage. So ask yourself right now, what's the first step you've been avoiding? What's the action you know you need to take but keep putting off because you don't have it all figured out? Maybe it's making that call, starting that business, committing to your health, or speaking your truth. Whatever it is, that step is the key to unlocking momentum. Stop waiting for the perfect plan. Stop waiting for certainty. Stop waiting for permission. Just move. Do something. Take the first step, because once you move, life moves with you. And once momentum is on your side, there is nothing you cannot. Remember, you don't need the entire path lit up to start walking. You just need enough light for the first step. And when you take it, the next one appears, and then the next, until one day you look back and realize you've climbed a mountain you once thought was impossible. So trust yourself. Trust the process. And take the first step now. Because momentum doesn't wait, it's created. And once you harness it, it will carry you further than you ever thought possible. When you make a decision with absolute certainty, everything inside of you shifts. Your mind, your emotions, your body, they all align in one direction. There's a difference between saying, I think I'll try, and saying I must. The first is weak, it's casual, it's optional. The second is unshakable, it's powerful, it's inevitable. The moment you decide with certainty, the world responds differently. You begin to notice opportunities that were invisible before. You attract people who are aligned with your vision. You access levels of energy and creativity you didn't even know you had. That's the power of certainty. Most people don't decide with certainty. They dabble. They dip their toes in the water, but they never dive in. They say, I'll give it a shot, but they leave the vague door open in case it doesn't work out. And do you know what happens when you leave yourself an exit strategy? You end up using it. You talk yourself out of your vision the moment it gets hard, the moment fear shows up, the moment obstacles appear. Because when something is optional, you'll quit. But when something is a must, you'll find a way. That's the secret of the people who achieve extraordinary things. They don't just want it. They decide it's non-negotiable. They burn the boats so there's no going back. They cut off every other option. And when you do that, your brain switches into a higher gear. Instead of asking, you start asking, how will I? You don't waste energy debating whether it's possible, you're too busy figuring out how to make it happen. Your mind is a powerful machine. When you give it a command backed by certainty, it gets to work finding solutions. But when you give it vague directions, it gets lost. If you say, I like to be healthier, your mind shrugs. But if you say, I've decided I will transform my health no matter what, suddenly your brain starts searching for answers. What food should I eat? What routine should I adopt? Who can help me? That certainty activates focus, and focus activates result. This is why half-hearted decisions never lead to lasting change. You can't be kind of committed to your vision. You're either in or you're out. There's no in-between. Think about any area of your life where you've truly succeeded. It wasn't because you dabbled, it was because you decided and made it non-negotiable. Maybe it was a career you pursued, maybe it was a relationship you fought for, maybe it was a personal goal you refused to give up on. Once you cross the line from I'd like to and I must, everything changed. Here's what most people get wrong. They think certainty comes from knowing the outcome. They want guarantees. They want to see the finish line before they start running. But certainty doesn't come from the outside. It comes from within. It's a state of being. It's when you declare with absolute conviction, I don't care how long it takes. I don't care how hard it gets. I don't care how many times I fail. I will not stop until I achieve this. That's real certainty. And that's what moves mountains. When you live this way, people can feel it. They sense your energy, your conviction, your unstoppable drive, and they're drawn to it. They want to help, to support, to be part of it. Opportunities that were hidden start to reveal themselves because certainty is magnetic. It pulls resources towards you. It creates alignment, not just within yourself, but with the world around you. Think about the opposite for a moment. What happens when you lack certainty? You hesitate. You second guess yourself. You waste time asking, should I, shouldn't I? You start and stop, never building momentum. And that indecision drains your energy. It weakens your confidence. It convinces you that maybe you're not capable. But the truth is the only thing you're lacking is a firm decision. Life doesn't reward maybe, it rewards clarity. It rewards certainty. It rewards the people who say this is happening and nothing will stop me. And when you step into that state, you begin to realize just how powerful you truly are. So ask yourself, where in your life have you been half committed? Where have you been treating your goals like preferences instead of musts? Where have you been leaving the back door open, giving yourself an escape route in case it gets uncomfortable? Be honest with yourself, because awareness is the key to transformation. And then truly decide that from this moment forward, you're all in. Remember this, human beings are capable of extraordinary things when they commit with certainty. History is full of people who had less intelligence, fewer resources, more obstacles, and yet they achieved great. Not because they had everything figured out, but because they made an unshakable decision. They refused to quit. They refused to settle. They refused to accept anything less than the life they knew they were capable of creating. You have that same power. It's not reserved for a select few. It's available to anyone willing to decide with absolute certainty. That includes you. So stop living in hesitation. Stop letting maybe drain your energy. Make the choice today to decide with clarity, with passion, with conviction, because when you do, your mind aligns, your actions align, your world aligns, and that alignment creates momentum that cannot be stopped. The moment you decide with certainty is the moment your destiny begins to change. There comes a point in every person's life when you realize the only time you can change your future is now, not tomorrow, not next week, not when you have more money, more time, more confidence, or more clarity. Now, the present moment is all you have, and it's the most powerful resource you will ever hold. Too many people waste their lives waiting for the right time, but the truth is the right time never comes. The stars won't suddenly align. Circumstances won't magically fall into place. The only thing that will ever create change is the decision you make in this moment. Think about how much of your life has already passed. Think about the dreams you've delayed, the opportunities you've watched slip through your fingers, the moments you told yourself later. Later turns into weeks, weeks into months, months into years, and suddenly you wake up realizing that time doesn't wait. The clock doesn't pause while you hesitate. The future isn't some far-off event you'll eventually arrive at. It's being shaped right now by the choices you make today. This moment right here is a turning point. It can be the line in the sand where you decide you will no longer tolerate mediocrity, no longer settle for less, no longer make excuses. Or it can be another wasted moment, another day added to the pile of some days. The difference is your decision. People often say, one day I'll change. But one day isn't on the calendar. Today is the only day that matters, because it's the only day you can actually do something about. Yesterday is gone, tomorrow is a promise no one can guarantee. All you have is now, and what you choose to do with it determines the direction of your life. The truth is, most people underestimate the power of a single day. They think transformation requires years, but years are built from days. Big change is simply the accumulation of small, consistent decisions made moment by moment. When you choose to take control today, you create momentum that carries into tomorrow. And if you keep stacking enough todays together with power, with intention, with discipline, your life will look radically different. So let me ask you, what if today was the day you finally stopped waiting? What if today was the day you took massive action toward the life you've always wanted? What if today was the day you drew a line in the sand and said, enough is enough, I will no longer live beneath my potential? Do you realize how quickly your life could change if you made that decision now? Don't let yourself fall into the trap of thinking that because you've wasted time in the past, your future is doomed. That's a lie. Your past doesn't define you. It prepares you. Every mistake, every delay, every hesitation can become fuel if you decide right now to use it. You can turn your pain into power, your regrets into resolve, but only if you act in this moment. The greatest tragedy is not failure, it's delay. Failure teaches, failure strengthens, failure redirects, delay steals. It robs you of momentum, of growth, of joy. And it does so silently, without you even noticing until it's too late. That's why urgency is essential. Urgency wakes you up. Urgency reminds you that your time here is limited. Urgency puts fire in your heart and forces you to stop postponing your life. When you understand that today is all you have, you stop taking your time for granted. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You stop living in someday and start living in now. And that's when everything begins to shift. Because the moment you commit to action today, your world responds, you build momentum, you attract opportunities, you start to feel alive again. Look at any great achievement in history, and you'll see it started with a decision made in the present moment. Someone decided no more waiting. Today I begin. And that decision set in motion a chain of events that changed everything. You have that same power right now. So ask yourself, what are you going to do with this moment? Are you going to waste it scrolling, distracting, making excuses? Or are you going to seize it, own it, and use it to create the life you've been dreaming about? Because if you don't decide now, then when? If not today, then what day? And if not you, then who? Your life is not some rehearsal, it's happening right now. Every breath, every heartbeat, every second is part of your story. And the story can change instantly the moment you decide it must. Don't let this moment pass. Don't let today be another day you look back on with regret. Make it the day you shifted, the day you rose, the day you claimed your future. Because the truth is simple. Today is the turning point. Today is the moment that matters. Today is the only time you can change everything. And if you seize it with courage, with certainty, with passion, then you'll discover that you are and always have been just one decision away from a completely different life.